Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Real Podcast with Andy. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Christi. As usual, guys, I always I like the guests to introduce themselves because they introduce themselves better than I introduce themselves. As you know, guys, I'm bad at introducing people. So I'm going to let Christi to introduce herself. Hi, Christi, how are you?
Very well, and yourself, Andile?
I'm doing very well, thanks. First, I would like to say thank you so much for just opening up your time to come through this morning. Truly appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, for sure. Just introducing yourself, like who you are, and so that our listeners and viewers get to know you better before we can,
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Christi van Colff. I've been in the industry for over 25 years, approximately. Started out in the audio world, and then I always believe that you've got to keep on doing it till you make it.
Yes.
Not fake it till you make it, but keep on doing it. So I once had people come up to our studios in Joburg and said, "Oh, yeah, you make TV commercials." And I was like, "Absolutely, we make TV commercials."
Sure.
And kind of got into that as well. By that link, wrote TV commercials for about 5 or 6 or 7 years, and I just loved doing all the different facets of film. At the end of the day, coming from an audio background, actually gave me an opportunity to really kind of look at things in a different light.
Yes.
Not going through your standard channels of film schools and those kind of things. And my passion for audio has grown over the years, and I've had wonderful opportunities to work with everybody in the industry, all the biggest studios.
Before we can get into that, when you say audio, so that like our guests could so that our listeners and viewers could get like an understanding of what you're talking about, like set, or talking about sound engineering in the studio or whatever,
Okay.
If you can maybe like elaborate just a little bit on that.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So basically from an audio perspective, I got into all facets of that effectively. I started out in studios from a music perspective, but quick moved into the on-set sound, location, recording, from films and TV commercials to music shows, big multi-track shows for the big music events. So my experience has literally gone through the whole, from the pre-production side, planning what to use in all the various aspects, all the way through to post-production for TV and film. And my company, about 7-8 years ago, launched the first Dolby Atmos and Aura 3D studios in Africa.
Wow.
And we were the first in the world, basically, to release a film, a musical concert film, in both Dolby Atmos and Aura 3D. So it was quite a significant experience.
Wow. So for those who don't understand what you were talking about, can you please just maybe elaborate like just a little bit? Like
Absolutely.
in terms of
So the final delivery of film from an audio perspective has changed over the years. We've gone from mono to stereo to 5.1 to 7.1, and now the standard format is immersive sound. There's various formats out there, but basically just means sound gets moved all around you. And not only in the past you had like 7 sources where sound could move between 7 places in a room, where with the introduction of Dolby Atmos and Aura 3D and these other immersive formats, there's a lot more speakers, physical mounted speakers in the rooms, which it's like, I kind of want to, like for your audience, which is the visual guys, I want to say that it links to being able to shoot in 4K and 8K and higher resolution formats, as well as higher frame rates.
That makes sense.
Because it just gives you a higher definition. In your audio workspace, you can move much smoother across all the various sound reproduction sources that's in the room. And understanding that and the ability and what it gives you as a filmmaker, the way you can use sound to tell the story and to really engage your viewers in the scene that they're actually watching, understanding that and then working it back to onset, to your music, to your sound design. These elements, just if you link them all together, they're creating so much opportunity to really invoke that emotional bond that the viewers kind of create between seeing and hearing that really just elevates what people experience when it comes to enjoying content in these days.
Yes. No, that's amazing. So, you say your company, what's the name of the company again?
So I've got a few different companies that operates in different fields. Our main audio post-production company is called SoundMax 3D.
Okay.
And that's facilitated from our buildings in Paarl in the Western Cape in the Winelands.
Okay. So that company does like post-production?
Yes, that company focuses on audio post-production and deliverables, both from an audio and visual perspective. We've got a full grading setup as well.
Wow.
So we've got a Barco post-production projector and DaVinci Resolve suite with Avid controllers and everything. So we kind of offer clients a finalization step because budgets today is a big problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Renting out a big space for your audio only is really limited and left for the big budget films. So we've tried to create a space where people that's currently operators that's working in their home studios or in smaller facilities can come and finalize what they've done to make sure that the product that they've created is going to translate into the real world out there in a confined and specially built cinema, basically. That's full size compared, because it sounds and looks different.
Yes.
When you work in a small house or a small edit suite with a TV screen, than when it goes to an actual projector.
Sure.
And the same with the audio. The distance from the speakers are different. When you're working in the small space, you're working on a near field setup. When you're going to large cinema spaces, then obviously you go far field.
Yes.
And being able to come to our facility and finalize that project and just make sure that everything is going to go out to the world exactly as the creative director has intended it to be, as what our aim has been with SoundMax 3D.
Yes, great, fantastic. It's almost like you answer every question that I'm about to ask. I'm about to ask you. I'm asking you this question, and then you answer some other questions that which is a great thing. Which is an amazing thing. So that's one of your companies, and then the other company.
I launched Post City Network about 8 years ago.
Yes.
The idea that I have is I come from big facilities facilitation. So in that time, and obviously in today as well, people didn't have budgets again. It's the same story. Budgets become less. So using big facilities for post-production has become in a way obsolete, just from a budget perspective. And not necessarily, technology has changed.
Yes.
You can edit a film that, shot on an iPhone and, edit it in your bedroom and it can go to cinema effectively. So I wanted to give the facility owners that has these big facilities an extension to reach the new, basically up-and-coming clients and established clients that's now working from smaller spaces. So the Post City Network was created to kind of link it all together. And that's still ongoing. So basically people join the network and we basically bring people together. The facilities with the operators, effectively. And then we've got Mastermax Studios, which is based in Joburg, which is my initial company, that focuses on scoring, on music production. Also, we do Foley for films and a lot of ADR for international films that we do between there and the studio in Lakeside that we have. And as part of the whole thing, education has for me always been a passion. And we partnered with Abbey Road Studios and Abbey Road Institute in London, and we brought their educational program to Africa, offering their advanced program in music production and sound engineering at our facilities in Joburg. So Abbey Road Institute Johannesburg is based at our studios in Johannesburg, and we basically are training the new generation of what we would call sound makers. Because the industry needs quality operators in the audio field specifically. A lot has been done in the development phase of the visual arts. There's many film schools out there and people have been doing fantastic work, but audio was kind of left behind from an educational perspective.
That's true.
A lot of the times people have to go and they study sound engineering, for instance, and then they're going to go and do another 10 years to really learn the craft properly.
Jeez.
Where our focus is really to create a Kickstarter thing for people in the audio industry, but we're combining the music production side with the technical skills, because budgets for films are not allowing for those big teams anymore that you used to have, where you'll have 10 people on sound department. They need people that can, from an on-set perspective, that can plan, run it, operate it, do the playback sound, and deliver a quality product for the studio, or even to just move on from set and then go on with the production in post. It makes more sense from a financial standpoint, because it might be a smaller budget, but if all that budget is going to one operator or one company, it just makes more sense for that company. And that's the idea that I've always had for educational side, is to teach people that's obviously talented for that, that can deliver like a quality one solution from an audio perspective, from the onset through to the scoring, sound design, final mix, and then the deliverables for the clients.
So you're talking about like sound design. I mean, there's so many people out there like who don't even understand what is sound design. You know what I mean? Like designing sound, or what are you doing? You know what I mean? So like what is sound design?
So there's an overall kind
So I'm so sorry. Because in the olden days, like in the olden days, where I grew up, we only knew like 2 or 3 things: music producer or sound engineering. That's all we knew. Sound designing and scoring, and we never knew those things. And I know that there's some, obviously I know those things now, but there's so many people that when you talk about those things, they don't even understand what you're talking about. So if maybe you can elaborate in terms of like all those areas of sound, sound design, starting from sound design. When you talk about sound design, what are you talking about?
All right, so basically there's an all-encompassing term that people talk about, the sound for a film, the total sound, as sound designer, right? But in technical terms, a sound designer is actually the person creating sounds that normally does not exist. So if you're thinking about the film like Jurassic Park and those kind of films, sound designers create sounds for productions, and that's a technical term for it, that does not exist. All your laser beams from Star Wars, all those kind of things. There's various roles when it comes to the audio department in the post-production field for film. So you've got your Foley artist that's basically taking what's on screen and recording in post-production those sounds that couldn't be captured literally on set, because on set we normally focus on the dialogue. Not as much on all the movement sounds. And if you think about a fighting scene, it's not like the people are really hitting one another. So it's a job between the sound designer and the Foley artists and engineers to basically create the final picture that you hear. Then you've also got your people that's in charge of the music, and you get music that has been composed specifically for the film, and then you also have people that's using library music and place it in film. That's
still on sound designing.
That again, the roles are kind of blurred at the moment. It's not like where it used to be. I mean, for instance, I would play a role of a sound supervisor on a project, and then I get involved with all the aspects, from the curating of music for the film to the original score, either physically doing it or putting the team together that then carries out all those different roles.
Sure.
But that's what I'm saying, is that people, when you talk about sound design from a technical perspective, that is effectively designing the environment that the film takes place in.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And then scoring?
Scoring is directly linked to the musical part of the film. But it doesn't necessarily be music that's got lyrics. The scoring can be part of your underscore for the film, that musical tones that lies below the action, that lies below the atmospheres. And that's what I'm saying, it's all blurred in today's world. Because being part of the team that's doing the scoring for a film can link through to the sound design elements. From my side, I like to link it all together. Because I like my sound design, my tones, my atmospheric tones that I use to, for instance, link up with the keys that the score is in. I mean, this scope is really big when it comes to these things. And working at the end of the day for me, what I always tell our students as well when we're busy training them in regard to film scoring and sound design is the director's vision is one of the most important things when you start planning what music you're going to be creating, what the atmosphere is going to be. To give you an example, a few years back we did a film which had a lot of external scenes in the Karoo, where someone was running through the Karoo basically and being chased. And the director's vision was that they wanted to translate, because basically the girl that was running away from this bunch of guys, it's the same environment, it's the same bush that they're running through, but he wanted people to understand that she knew the environment and she was at peace with the environment, where the people chasing her were out of their comfort zone. So we used a combination of sound design elements, atmospheric sounds, drones, drone sounds, not drones flying by.
Yes.
And
drone sounds.
Yeah.
What is
like low frequency rumbles and just tones that basically linked with a musical score to create an uplifting feeling, basically, in the sound that you heard. So while she's running through the Karoo, when she's running, you'll have this very calm, peaceful sound almost, although it's like an energetic thing happening, but you can feel at peace. And when it was the bunch of crooks that was chasing her, we used discord tones and we used minor key structures in the actual underscore to really like tell people from an audio perspective that these people don't belong there.
Yeah.
And it was just a phenomenal experience when you listen to that with and without audio. The feeling that you got and the experience that you got, you could really feel that there's this disharmony with these people, and it added just phenomenally to the experience of the film. The sonic soundscape that we were able to create, and we didn't do the score for that film, so we weren't writing the melodic music, but we worked with the composer that was doing the score to link our sound design elements and make it all flow as one big canvas, because that's what it should be. At the end of the day, sound for film. If you make a film, people walk out and they've really engaged with that film, but they don't even speak about the sound.
Exactly.
Then you've been successful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it should never detract from the story.
That's powerful.
It should just be enhancing the experience.
I love that. I love that. So when you're talking about, so the composer, so what's the composer? So
the composer is normally responsible for creating the melodic music for the film. So they sit with the director, get a feeling of what the director wants the music of the film to sound like, what the messages is. Sometimes they are using original, or most of the time they're using original songs if there's lyrics with it. But if you get action movies, you've got chase scenes, you've got all these things happening, and the music is what makes your heart pump. If you listen to those same scenes without the music, it kind of sounds dull.
That's true.
So the music brings life to what's happening on screen. And that's the role of the composer, is to bring that life, to bring the director's vision from a visual perspective and translate it into music. Because at the end of the day, music is a universal language, right?
Yes, that's true.
We once did an album for an artist called Sinqoto. It was the last album that she did before she passed on. And we did this experiment where we got an artist in to paint while we were mixing. But the artist, they didn't understand the language at all.
Yeah.
And after each song, the artist would create a pre-sketch while we were mixing, and then we'll get Bussy to look at it and tell us, what their experience is. And it was amazing to see how the artist captured...
So you've worked with some big names, yeah?
Oh, yes, absolutely. By a lot of grace, I've had to work with fantastic people.
That's great. I'm listening to the name now. It's quite a huge name.
Yeah, and it was just phenomenal because we could see how music translated through language barriers, because what the artist painted was what the song was about. And for me, translating that into film, all the films that I've been involved with, and from a scoring perspective or just from a sound design or sound supervision perspective, I really try and keep that in mind, that we have an opportunity to tell the story in more depth. And I think that for me is what a composer is all about.
Sure.
Is being able to translate what's being said, what's being felt, what's being seen into an experienceable audio soundscape that will really put the listener and the viewer into the space and into the headspace of what's happening on screen without detracting from the story.
Okay. I mean, the way you answer these questions, you answer them like so thoroughly to the point that, I've got nothing to ask. What I mean? You answer them in a way that like it's clear, even for someone who does not know what we are talking about now, for them to understand. It's almost like you are in a class or something like that. You know what I mean? So, music supervisor. What is a music supervisor? I've dealt with music supervisors a lot.
Yeah.
So for someone that doesn't know what is a music supervisor, what role do they play in the project and stuff like that? Like, what is the one that I've worked with, just few projects. It's Craig from Mama Dance.
Yeah.
And Daniel Apple.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the guys that I've worked with in the past. So do you also do music supervision as well?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so what is a music supervisor for people?
So, as with all these things in the real world, in the big budget world, the music supervisor would normally be just the person overseeing everything music related for the film. So they will be the coordinating basically point and the connection point between the director and the composers, as well as the person assisting the music compilers, putting the music together. So basically that, in layman's terms, I would say the music supervisor is the translator between the director and the music team for the film. They would be involved in every aspect of choosing music, as well as, if you think about editing, right?
Sure.
So if you're editing a scene, it gets cut to a pace.
Yes.
And normally music is necessary to give the editors a pace to cut to. So even though the music might not be the final music used in the film, the music supervisor will be involved in that process, making sure that what's being used is going to be at the same pace as what the final score is going to be like.
Yes.
And understanding the director's vision is one of the most pivotal parts of the music supervisor's role, because the director has got a million things on her or his mind.
Yes, exactly.
And someone needs to translate that to the team.
Sure.
And that's the overseeing role of the music supervisor for the film. But sometimes, and in many cases, the music supervisor gets involved with more aspects.
Yeah.
Might be part of the composition team, or might be the person compiling as well for the pre-production, for the post-production, and then for the final deliverables. They will also normally be involved with the licensing rights. So if any music's being used from big bands, to get the licenses and organize the contracts for that. That's all part of the music supervisor's role.
Okay, so I'm a director. I'm having this project that I'm doing. So let's say I want to use, let's say, Prime Circle's music.
Yes.
So you as a music supervisor, you'll be in charge of all that process.
Absolutely.
In terms of organizing the paperwork and making sure that all the beats the parts and the beats that I want from whatever song are well taken care of.
Yes.
So that's the music supervisor working.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, cool. So just a last one. So when it comes to music library, how does the music library thing work? Like in terms of, obviously I know you work like music library, like different composers, different kinds of people in all of that. So how, like if I want to use, I'm as a director, I want to use, let's say, Sinqoto's song on my, like in terms of the rights, in terms of how the process, how does that go? Like if I want to use a Sinqoto's song on my, as a music supervisor, it's the first time I'm doing this. It's my first maybe movie. I said, listen, I want to use Sinqoto's, how does the process go? Like for me, as the new director, someone that has never dealt with such a situation before.
I mean, it's a process at the end of the day. So it also depends on where you're using library music, because you get pre-licensed library music or subscription library music that you can access. And then you get like just music in general that you need to obtain a sync license for. That's what it's basically called, to get a sync license to sync some music with your film at the end of the day. And that's a legal process that goes through. Contracts have to be put in place. I mean, it depends on the record label that the artist is with. Who owns the master rights for the song. So there's a lot of rights organizations in the country that you can contact for that. I don't, can't specifically, it depends on whose song you're going to be working with. But it's quite a complex process. There is also companies like Sheer Publishing and a few other publishing people in the country that you can contact as a music supervisor if the artist that you want to work with is being represented by them, and they have stock standard contracts for sync licensing for certain songs. That you've got to
like, is it affordable for like?
It depends on whose song you want to get. So if you're getting like newer artists that doesn't have so much experience or class in the industry, you can get away with reasonable pricing. Sometimes it shouldn't be like that, but sometimes for free, because people sometimes just want their song to be on a film so badly to get exposure. I don't believe that's any constructive way to build the industry, though.
Yeah, that's true.
But it can sometimes have value for new composers that want to get their music heard. But effectively, I've worked on one production that used, they wanted to use one of Michael Jackson's songs. And when they contacted the rights owners, they wanted $500,000 for the 30 seconds of usage.
What?
And obviously they couldn't do it because, the whole budget for the film was about that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not always conducive. I was music supervisor on a show called Icons, which is it's a music photography show. Basically, they were showcasing the photography of all the big bands. It was made for one of the international companies. And what we had to do, I think, because they wanted to use because it was big bands like U2 and all these massive bands was in the show. And the director also, they wanted to use a lot of the original music, but it was just unaffordable. And we tried to create similar experience films. So we did the original score for the series that took influence from those bands. So sometimes that's what you're going to have to revert to. If you cannot afford the sync license for what you really want, then you might have to revert to creating an original score that gives you the same emotional connection.
For me, this is almost like a class, it's almost like a class for me. I believe that it's gonna feel the same with everyone that is listening, that will be listening or watching as well. So I'm just a guy, I want to, I'm listening to this thing, and then I feel like I want to be the sound designer. What would be the first step for me to take? What would be your advice for someone like that? Say I want to be a sound designer or want to be a sound scorer or whatever. Like, what would be your first, is this something that I can learn, I can self-learn, or is it something that I have to go to school for? Or is it something that I can just maybe study it from online, like just by, picking up videos like this online, then just listen to someone like you talking about these things, and then, pick up the pieces by myself? Like, how does it, what would be your best advice for someone like that?
Well, I would say if this is, this is not, it's a field that you really have to have a passion for. So if this is something that you really want to do, the first thing is to start doing it. First, you for sound design, for instance, or for scoring, whatever, you need to know software. You need to know how to use the software as a starting point.
So the starting point is to get the software. Learn that software.
And watch videos about it online. There's a lot of educational content.
So you don't have to go to school.
I would not jump to school as they would. Even like at Abbey Road, we don't allow students to start the course with us without a background. They've got to submit a music portfolio, for instance, before we allow them to actually study the course with us. Because number one, we don't believe in wasting parents' funds as well.
Sure.
You know, it's an expensive field to be in. The computers, the equipment's expensive. You've got to know this is what you really want to do. And I believe that starting out by watching videos online.
I love what you said, that it's an expensive, that's where it begins. You have to understand that.
Absolutely.
You're going into something that's going to cost you.
Yeah, to do it properly, it costs you money to have the proper gear, but it does not mean that you can't start from nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can literally start by educating yourself via watching online videos. That's a fantastic starting point. And then you also get a feel of what you really like and what side of it are you interested in. But if you want to make it into the industry, you've got to start by, number one, educating yourself, getting, you can download videos from the internet, create sounds for it, in the DAWs that's available. There's free DAWs that you can start with. You don't have to spend money. You just need access to a computer, essentially. I mean, these days you've got products on your phone that you can use as a DAW, for instance. And that's where I would start. I would start by getting a portfolio done for myself, because you're only as hireable as your last job at the end of the day. So if you've got nothing to show, then the chance of starting in the industry is almost zero. So getting onto that, as when you're starting out, will be to first train yourself a little bit, get into things, and then if this is really what you want to do, there is courses out there that can serve as career kickstarters. What I normally tell the students that wants to come study with us is that the value of what you are learning at our institution is not as much in the educational part, but it's in the network you get to build.
Sure.
With your fellow students, as well as with the industry professionals that you get introduced to. Even when I studied a few moons ago, what I learned gave me a good overview of what this industry is about. But it was meeting people and getting exposure to, like, this guy is doing live sound, for instance, and then they'll invite me to come and work with them, and I meet someone else there that's doing this. And I got into film and sound design, all these things, by meeting people. And I believe that effectively that's what gets you in at the end of the day. So you've got to educate yourself, know what it's about, be well educated, understand the scope of what audio for TV and film is all about. But then you can go and study. I mean, we are, as part of our course, we're offering a film and television post-production section as well. So there is stuff out there. I mean, AFTA's got stuff. A lot of the schools out there has got it. It just depends on what exactly you want to get out of it. But at the end of the day, you only get out what you put in.
Yes.
No one's going to make you a superstar.
That's true.
You've got to do that yourself.
Yeah, that's true. So now I've seen some other guys like from big studios downscaling to small studios, like to bedroom studios and stuff like that. So some of them, they would be like, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you produce, is what you create. If you have a big studio, you have a bedroom studio, or you have like a basement studio, whatever. So like, what do you say about that? Because sorry, these guys are distracting me.
Fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, what can you say about that in terms of studios, like basement studio, bedroom studio, huge studios and stuff like that?
I completely agree with the notion that you can. You don't need the big studio.
Yeah.
To create wonderful stuff. I mean, if you look at Billie Eilish's last album that won all the Grammys, right?
Yes.
It was done in a bedroom.
Yeah.
So what I feel about the big studios is what it's done for me, and I can only speak for what it's done for me in my career.
Sure.
The big studios gave me big opportunities.
Yeah, I hear you.
I got to work with big people because they wanted the big space.
Yeah.
And that has given me opportunities. And what I wanted to do when I started the Abbey Road Institute thing for South Africa was to give other people the opportunity to learn in that environment, because you learn different aspects.
Sure.
I try to teach the students basically to learn how to use the big stuff so that you understand, because all the software that we're using today, right, is all based on hardware from the olden days, effectively, most of it. So we try and teach students kind of that, but that they can go to their bedroom studios and they can create. I myself work with big international acts, and I will work sometimes in the big studio when they're around. But when I'm doing post-production for Mumford & Sons or any of these kind of acts, I sometimes work at my house on my laptop. I do like to reference back to the big studio because I've got access to it.
Yeah.
And it does give me the opportunity to make sure the quality control is done.
Yeah.
But it does not mean that you can't do the other side of things.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's about who you are, what your dream is, and I mean, I've always kind of lived by things. What are you willing to give up to get there?
Yeah.
And you've got to quantify that at the end of the day. If you feel that's what you need, if the big studio is what you need, that fits your personality, that fits who you are, then nothing stops you from doing that.
Yes.
It's literally a choice that you've got to make.
Yeah.
And you've got to get yourself there. But you can deliver a fantastic product from your laptop at the airport. I mean, I used to mix a show called Skyroom Live, which I literally mixed on the airplane.
I know, SABC.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
know,
we used to create...
What happened to that show?
Each time ran out. There was other stuff that happened.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like...
because it had I know it had a huge following.
It did, yeah.
It had a huge following.
So we did 2 or 3 seasons, basically.
And then it was no more.
And then it was done, yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand why, because it had a huge following.
Yeah. But it was, people...
So did you work on that?
Yes, yeah. Basically, my company was in charge of all the audio.
Oh, wow.
So we did the house audio and the broadcasts and the post-production.
Really?
Yeah. So I used to fly to Joburg, because I was staying in Cape Town at that time.
Yeah.
Fly to Joburg on a Saturday afternoon. Then we would mix the show live for broadcast in the night. And then I will take the audio and get onto the airport.
So you're a big deal.
No.
Yes, you are definitely. Because you would never do such,
At the end, you're only as big as your last job, eh?
Yeah.
So, no, I've had the opportunity to work on fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful for that opportunity, and I try and share that.
Yeah.
Because people have shared with me. When I was starting out and getting into things, people gave me opportunities, and I try and do the same where I can.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing about this podcast. We've been bringing people in, not just just talking to the audience, to the viewers now, not just anyone. We've been bringing people that that have paid their dues in their departments. So that when you watch. So I remember when we posted the Kim Geldenhuys's episode, someone said to me that this podcast, if we continue doing something like it, was usually when you bring people like Kim, like Christi, some of international podcasters would have you to subscribe on something, or you would have to pay, or to get such people, as such educational and informative episodes like this, because this is not just a podcast where we just chill and just talk about life. Just chill. What were you doing last week or something like that? You know what I mean? You went to the party. I heard this happened. No, this is not something like this. Is not a podcast like that.
Yeah.
This is more like an educational and informative thing. You know what I mean? Someone referenced into one of these. There's this thing. I think it's a masterclass. There's this thing called masterclass where they invite experts of departments, and then they talk about you have to pay a subscription fee to get to watch those. Someone said to me this podcast is something like that. That's why we're just trying to, to serve our listeners and our viewers as much as possible. You know what I mean? So I truly appreciate sitting next to you right now. You know what I mean? Listening, hearing you, you've done worked with so many people like Muslim Tlong, Dan Skyrim Rive. You know. So I mean, I'm really excited, you know, to hear these things. So yeah, I mean, just to finish up, you know, thank you so much for all the information that you've shared so far. Truly appreciate it, not just for myself, but for our listeners and our viewers as well.
Pleasure.
You know, truly appreciate it. You know, even myself, I've learned a lot, even though I've worked with some of people like you. But, you know, it's just sitting down, because I never had the chance to sit down and, you know, it's always work, you know, work, we do this, we do that. So you never get it's almost like you're playing a catch up, you learn as you go, you know, about these things. So like sitting down with you now, you know, I'm definitely sure that we're going to work together. You know what I mean? Sitting down with you now, it makes me, you know, gives me like a broader understanding about the sound department, you know, which you said that it's not been given like enough praise or credit enough, you know, especially in our industry, but it's a vital part, you know. I mean, we cannot do anything without sound, whether on set or out of set.
Yeah.
We need sound.
Absolutely.
You know, it's whether we are on set or we are not on set, or whether out of set, you know, we do need sound. So the last thing that I just want us to talk about now, like in terms of your equipment and stuff, like what, like for someone to get to the point, to the level where you are, you know, like what equipment, you know, like softwares, you know, stuff like that, like would you know, does that matter or?
It helps. The better equipment you have, the better product you can more easily deliver.
Yeah.
If you have good microphones, you have lower noise levels, so you have less issues with noise afterwards.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that you can't start out. I mean, I started out with the most cheap equipment that you have, that you can get at that time. You know, it was like Samsung microphones and like even worse at some points. I think it was like Dixon microphones and stuff.
Yeah.
When I started out, my first recording before I even went to study was done like with Dixon microphones through a Lee mixer into a Wavelab sound card and a computer.
Jeez, yeah.
So look, the quality was crap, but I mean, it was fine for that moment.
Yes.
So I don't believe that equipment should put you off. But when you get in the position to start purchasing more expensive equipment, it helps. It does help. It makes your job easier at the end of the day. And that's what it's, you know, if you want a free and easy workflow, technology has become so much cheaper that you don't have to spend millions anymore.
Yes,
like
that's
in
true.
the old days. You know, you can get away with maybe 10 or 20,000 rand with a basic kit. That can do fantastic work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're in the location sound department, you can literally for under 20,000 rand, you can put together a location sound kit, the Zoom mixer, and some Sennheiser microphones or something else that's out there, and you can get started. Or if you can't afford something, you can rent gear. You don't have, like when I started out, I didn't have gear. I rented gear that I needed for the job. And, you know, specifying equipment, I think is very irrelevant. You've got to go and do your research as to what's going to work for your application.
Yeah, that's true.
Because every environment is different. If you're filming out in the Okavango Delta, you're going to use different microphones that you're going to use in a studio in Cape Town.
That's true.
Because you have different needs.
Yes.
But I would say nothing has to deter you. I mean, the need for content in general is enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is the industry that you want to be in, doesn't matter which department, get out there and start doing it. Make content. Mm-hmm. Whether it's on your iPhone or on your Samsung, and you're recording the audio directly onto your phone, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Just do it.
Yeah, I love what you just said now. I remember like years ago, I spoke to this director, like years ago when I was studying in the industry, once said the same thing, that you want to be a director, take the camera, just shoot anything.
Exactly.
Just shoot anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then from there, we will start, you know, getting ideas of what to shoot once you start shooting. So I love what you just said right now, you know. So, I mean, Any like last few words, like you would love to say, like you would love to to give it to to those who wants to be in a place where they are fully armed,
Absolutely.
like you, or something like that.
I would say just from a note to directors out there, or directors starting
Sorry,
out.
the question that I wanted to ask before that was, for what you do, what has been your experience or working with producers, directors, something like that. Like, what is it that you can say for someone who's starting, and advice for someone that is starting up, when it comes to saying, okay, listen, because I know some other directors are difficult, some of the producers are difficult, like what is it that you can advise for them in terms of like to maintain that working relationship and what they should be expecting?
Okay. So communication is key.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, whatever you're doing, whether it's whatever, post-production, on-set, music, live shows, whatever, communication with your client is a key aspect. Staying humble. I think a lot of people want to wear this cap of, I know most people want to be the director.
Yes.
But I always believe that in your department, you must remember what you're there for. At the end of we're there in the audio department, we are there to serve the video department effectively. We're there to serve the story. And that's something that I would really want to, express as one of your most successful things. You might not be technically as wonderful, might not be delivering the best quality product yet. But if you're a nice person to work with,
that's true.
You're going to get more jobs.
That's so true.
If people are enjoying you, if they can, and obviously we're putting onto that, the more you know what you're doing, the more you've got knowledge, not only of your own department, but for the other departments in your workflow.
Yes.
It just gives you the opportunity to deliver such better quality and better communication with all fields.
Yeah.
Because if you understand what the sparks do, if you understand what the grips do, and you actually have appreciation for their job, for wardrobe department, having appreciation for wardrobe department as an audio person, having that relationship with them so that you can actually feel comfortable going up to the wardrobe and say, hey, I've got to hide a microphone in this person's body somewhere. That's what's a communication. I was like from the music side, we always said, you've almost got to be a psychiatrist and then an engineer.
I love that.
Because you need to be able to handle people's moods. As the audio person, a lot of time you get more close experience.
Sorry for cut. It reminds me of what there's a guy called he's a first AD, like a legend, Martin Palmer. He once said to me when he was training me, when I was studying as an AD, when you're an AD, it's almost like you're a father. It's almost like you're a father because everyone is always saying something, always complaining. You have to make sure that you manage all of that, So I love what you're saying. Yeah.
So that's for me, that's always been the key thing in my career as well, as I wanted to acknowledge people for who they are and the roles that they play. It makes you not subpar to anybody.
Yeah.
And that's why knowing who you are, your identity, for me personally, my journey that I've been through, there's been quite some challenges in that field.
Yes.
And just like being yourself and being able to be yourself in your work field.
Yeah.
But doing that makes such a huge difference.
Yes.
Being open and forthcoming in your relationships with people. That's what takes you places. People will rather use an on-set sound recordist that's a wonderful person, but that might not be the fastest recordist out there, than using a grumpy person that thinks too much of themselves and are difficult to work with.
It's actually a point. I remember when I was shooting like a commercial in Joburg. When I went, I was given like options of DOPs. So there's this DOP, like he's an old guy, or like he's like when I looked at his reel, it was good, CV was good. And I was like, okay, cool, I want to work with this guy. But the agent said, well, you can work with him, but he's a very grumpy guy. He's a very grumpy old DOP. I was like, no, it doesn't matter how good you are. I don't want to work with a grumpy person. rather give me less experience, but good as well.
Absolutely.
But, so I just love your points. They just takes me back to all my references, in my industry life. So, all the things that you said, it's like point on, all of them. So thank you so much, Christi. I'm not sure if I've already asked you about your last words. I was asked you, but then I
you jumped to that.
Yeah, I jumped. Yes, like your last words. Anything that you would like to say?
Yeah. So the note to directors is, keep the sound part in mind from the start. It should actually be in mind from the script writing process, because that's where sound starts becoming important. If you're writing a script and you're writing a scene, and it's you've got to keep that in mind. What is the sound going to do in there? And giving it its due value and budget and time is really, really important. Because without that, at the end of the day, if you have scratchy sound or dialogue, in today's world, people are complaining so much about dialogue in the deliverables for films when they're watching on Netflix. It's mainly because people don't think of it. And we've had it with one of the streaming companies that approached us to do post-production on a series. And the time that they wanted to give us for post was so low that we had to walk away, because I said, we can't, the audio has been neglected. It wasn't the fault of the location recordists. It was shot at such a tempo because the budget was so low that there was no time to do it properly. And that's why for directors.
So you walked away from it, you said no?
We walked away, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Other people picked up and they did it anyways. But I didn't want to be involved with something which I can't guarantee the end product of.
I love that. I love that. Which means you're not just doing it for the sake of doing it.
No, for me, it's passion for the craft.
Yeah, I love
that. It's about telling stories that matters.
It's, it's the same thing with me, Christi. I've said no to a lot of jobs, I've said no. I don't know how many briefs that I've got because of, I've been focusing on some other things as well. You know what I mean? Because I'm branching into long forms at the moment. So I've been saying no to a lot of them, into a lot of commercials, a lot of music videos. I've been saying a lot to a lot of them, like getting briefs, not just because I'm branching into that, but simply because of sometimes the brief, sometimes because of the brief, sometimes because of the expectations of the client, things like that. And people don't understand why you say no. Don't understand, because you're not just doing this for the sake of doing it. I was like telling a friend of mine, saying that my stomach don't control, my love for what I'm doing. The love for what I'm doing comes first. I know I have to pay my bills. I know I have to do all those. You don't have to remind me about that. Why you take the job? You have to pay bills. I know that. But I'm going to take in that, and then I would have compromised myself. So I love what you just said, that you let go of the job simply because of such issues. So sorry. You're just finishing what you're saying.
No, so that's the note to directors. Give thought to the audio from the start. So that bring your audio people in from the start so they can be involved with the pre-production, with the planning, with the wardrobe planning, all those kind of things. In my company, that's what I started doing for directors. I said to them, bring us in from the start. We design the workflow from day one, from your pre-production. We get involved with the post-production because that'll ease up your flow, your data management, the way everyone talks to one another, the communication of things. Between the different departments, all that stuff has to be kept in mind from the start, because then you'll just have a much more easy experience at the end of the day that's going to come out as something really special. And then for the audio guys, for specifically, remember that you are there to serve the story. You are not there to make a statement.
I love that.
That is the core for me.
That's actually what people should. I wish you could say that again. You're there for what again?
They're there to serve the story,
not to make a statement.
Not to make a statement.
I hope you guys are listening. I love that. I love it. Thank you so much, Christi.
It's a pleasure.
I appreciate your time. I mean, it was a class for me, myself as well. You know, so I'm just looking forward to our, our future working relationship, because I'm sure it won't end here. You know, I've learned a lot from you. So that was Christi, guys. That was another episode of the Real Podcast. So all Christi's details will be on the screen. Christi's full name, her social media, company, and everything will be on the screen. So just in case you want to get in touch with her for anything, guys. So that was another episode of the Real Podcast, guys. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next one. Thanks. Thank you so much, Christi.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.